Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be installing the Bellfab skid plate system for the 2017 and newer Ford Super Duties. This is to help protect the plastic transmission pan that Ford decided to put on our trucks, as well as protect your catalytic converter from being stolen. Now I have to include a disclaimer here. I am very good friends with Anthony Bell, who owns Bellfab. He did give me a very small discount on the skid plate in order to make this video and for helping him test the prototype on my truck when he originally designed it. Included in the kit, we have the skid plate itself, the front mounting bracket, this piece, the rear mounting bracket, this piece, and we have our hardware kit. Inside of the hardware kit is some anti-seize, a cool sticker for your water bottle, security Torx bolts. This is what will help prevent your catalytic converter from being stolen because not everybody has the bit for this. The bit required for the security Torx bolts, and some washers and spacers as needed for the front and rear mounting brackets. I'm going to briefly go through the install process here in the shop before we get out to the truck. The front bracket will install to the rear engine crossmember on the truck, while the rear bracket will install to the rear transmission crossmember on the truck. If you have the transfer case skid plate, you're going to unbolt the skid plate and slide this in between. Once the mounting brackets are installed on the truck, you're going to put the front of the skid plate up on top of the front mounting bracket. Then you will lift the rear of the skid plate up to the rear mounting bracket and then loosely install the bolts. Then we'll come back to the front mounting bracket and loosely install the bolts here, square up the skid plate, and tighten everything down. Now, let's go out to the truck and get this installed, but first we're going to need to grab a 9/16 wrench, a 5/8 inch wrench, and either an impact or a ratchet with a 1/4 inch bit adapter for our security Torx bit.
Right here we are looking at the rear engine crossmember that is located just behind the front axle. Attached to this crossmember was a wiring harness that I had to remove, and I actually ended up drilling a hole in the front skid plate mounting bracket in order to reattach the wiring harness to that mounting bracket. Anthony said that in future designs this will be updated. Now we're installing the front mounting bracket, and you'll notice that I have one bolt and spacer installed in the top hole, while the two lower bolts are installed in the crossmember on the truck. We'll get that spacer reinstalled and then put the nuts loosely on the mounting bracket to hold it in place so we can square it up and tighten everything down. To tighten these nuts and bolts down, I'm using a 9/16 wrench and a security Torx bit on my impact. This worked for the lower two. For the upper bolt, I ended up using a standard 3/8 inch bolts with two 9/16 wrenches. Now onto the rear mounting bracket. I'm using a 5/8 inch wrench to break loose the bolts on the transfer case skid plate. Right here you will notice I made an oopsie. I accidentally mounted the mounting bracket on the bottom side of the transfer case skid plate instead of between the transfer case skid plate and the crossmember. Make sure you install the mounting bracket between the transfer case skid plate and the crossmember. I will fix this at some point down the road. For the hardware on the other side, we're going to use a washer and a lock nut, and the security Torx bolts provided with the kit. Once these are loosely installed, we will hit them with the impact to snug them down, but not make them tight, until the skid plate is installed and we can square everything up. Now for the easiest part, installing the skid plate. We're going to tuck the front lip over the front mounting bracket, and we will hold the rear up in place and loosely install a couple of bolts. With the rear bolts installed, we will now square everything up and loosely install 2 bolts in the front. Moving back to the rear, we are going to move the rear mounting bracket around until everything is squared up, then tighten 1 bolt on the rear mounting bracket to hold it in place. Next, we are going to apply anti-seize to all of the bolts and get them tightened down so everything stays square while we finish torquing down the rear mounting bracket. After verifying that the skid plate is not touching anything, mainly the catalytic converters, it's time to tighten down the bolts for the transfer case skid plate and we will be done. Hopefully this tutorial has helped with the install of your Bellfab skid plate on a 2017 to 2022 Super Duty. For more information or to order this skid plate or many other parts for your off-road vehicle, visit bellfabrication.com or Bell Fabrication on Instagram and Facebook.